And we're live. Hello and welcome to the 33rd episode of Game Theory Gang. I'm your host, Maddie Allen, with ChrispyMan from hexfire.io as our guest tonight. It has been 100 weeks of Tuesday nights. Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you. There was the legendary Quant Gang that happened for the first over a year, and now I think that was, well, probably 1.25 years or something like that. And here we are 100 Tuesdays later since the beginning. So I'm going to see if I can get the band back together for one last show, maybe next week or the week after that. But my schedule has been pretty much filling up with lots of really good stuff I'm going to be announcing along the way. So here we go. Let me see. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good to hear. Oh, there we go. There's our transition. Maybe because it's the 100th show, maybe I should play the trailer for Quant Gang, because seems fitting, because that was the longest running show. So
very nice.
Here we go.
And this is from Maddie Allen of Hex Therapy Live. After Richard's done with stream, I hope it's still hours away. The new Hex Quant and I will go live to show off a new chart for Hex USD price appreciation with staked interest factored in.
Cool.
Who wouldn't want to dance to that?
I know, right?
You know.
So, in keeping with the, with the tradition of what we've talked about in the past, I guess to just throw this out there, here's the bit of alpha that I've been thinking on today. So, there's always been this narrative of, like, in finance, you want to go after whatever's going to give you the best alpha. You want to go after things that are decorrelated from the rest of the market, because that's where all the mad gains are. Well, in the past couple of days, we've started to see Hex start to act decorrelated again in some ways. And I think that that's really cool. And it made me realize, being decorrelated from something is, it's really kind of like a multi-dimensional type of thing, because you have positive correlations and negative correlations. And so, if we were decorrelated from Bitcoin in the beginning, in the first year, let's say, and then the second year we were correlated with Bitcoin, and then now if we're going into another year where maybe we could be decorrelated again from Bitcoin, well, that all can add up to the highest degree of decorrelation possible. And so who doesn't want to be decorrelated from a bear market and correlated during a bull market? I mean, that seems like a pretty good deal to me.
I vote for that. If I get a vote.
Yeah, of course. Everybody gets a vote. And that, the other thing that it reminds me of is how the narratives, especially for Bitcoin, have changed over time. So I've got like a chart here that I always refer to because it made such an impression on me whenever I saw it. This is like with time going across here on the x-axis. So you have from 2009 all the way to 2018. And then you can see the color is the ratio of how much one narrative was playing out versus something else. I'm not sure exactly how they measured this, but if you were following the Bitcoin story along the way, and when you look back, I think it's pretty evident that it's there's something here. And so what we saw was back in 2009, the narrative of being an e-cash proof of concept was really big, and then that got traded out over time for having a cheap payments network until that was no longer true. And then the gray in the middle here is anonymous darknet currency was once touted as like, oh, that's the best thing for Bitcoin to be from 2010 to maybe 2014. And then the next narrative after that was being a reserve currency for crypto. Another narrative was censorship resistant e-gold. And that one played out here in yellow pretty solid over time. And then at some point, Bitcoin was considered a programmable shared database. And then finally, an uncorrelated financial asset was one of the narratives. And now it's like cyber hornets. Nobody really knows what that means except for Michael Saylor, but that's the latest one.
Cyber hornets. Good stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting chart, isn't it?
Do you think the HEX narrative has changed over the past 2.8 years?
Yes, I think it's changed. I don't think it's substantially different, but I think the nuances of it have changed. I'd have to sit and make a list of the things I thought about that might have changed.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And also, I think it's just the nature of our system, though, too, right? Because as staking behavior changes, that's a reflection of the narrative change. So one example of that, and I'll probably try to nail it the right way, but one example of that would be short staking. So anybody who's done the research would say they understand that longer stakes pay better. So where did this 3 billion plus of HEX that gets recycled every month come from? I say every month, but the time frame varies. And a little bit alpha that I think I'm detecting is that we actually have seen a shift from it being like a 45-day and less kind of a time frame, that those short stakers are now extending out just a little bit further, which makes sense too. Yeah, well, it makes sense too, because as APY comes down a little bit, based on the TShares being eaten up, it used to be you could count on a straight up 1% per month if you did a 30-day stake, and that's come down, right? I'm not sure what the calc is right now. I haven't done it, but I think the last I saw was like 1/8 of a percent for a month, maybe a little bit more than 1/8. But on the T-share rate model, and of course this is all new because we've only had 1/3 year. This is the 3rd year, right? It's not like we have other years to really compare everything to, and it's the first entrance into the bear market. So I don't know if this is different than how it would be. But you remember how I showed that chart one time and we had this flat steps?
Mm-hmm.
So every time there was a share rate increase, it would be flat, and then we project it to be flat until the small stakes, the shorter stakes caught up, and one was made right after, and then you'd start to see it angle up. Well, this time when we had this last change, it didn't just go out 45 days, it went out to the end of the year. And so now, instead of it being a series of steps, it's just a line going up and to the right through the end of the year, for stakes being made by non-OA related stakers. And so I can't prove this yet. I got to go dig into it some more. But what that says to me, though, is that more people are staking for that kind of 90, 120 to 45-day range than they were before.
Yeah, go team.
Yes, go team.
I think, yeah, the more that people are able to stake, the better the price performance can do. And then when you have situations like the God whale supposedly coming in, I haven't looked on chain, but I saw somebody post the transaction on chain, and some people were asking me what the God whale's address is. I think I know of a couple, but yeah. So, when you get the God whale buying, that's a pretty good signal. Now, Hexologist pointed out that the God whale was also buying at 10 cents. So that doesn't mean that this is the bottom, but it's nice to see Hex pump 10 or 20% 2 days in a row.
Yeah, can you remember? I remember that. I was like, this is how this feels. This is good.
I mean, last week it seemed like we were dealing with a stable coin when it comes to Hex. It's just been going sideways for a month or two.
Oh
or
yeah.
3.
Well, honestly, who didn't get FOMO when they saw those green candles, right? And that's kind of what happens, right? That's why the DCA approach is such a good approach. Because yes, I could have waited to get 2 cents again or below 2 cents again, and there's still people calling for 1.5 cent. But I don't know that it'll ever get there, you know. And if I hold off and just wait, I'll just miss the boat. Or worse, then you get kind of this FOMO feeling that you're just going to buy now, and then it goes down, So
Yeah.
and I think in the end, right, whether I buy more Hex at, of course, it matters in ROI terms, but I mean, whether I buy more Hex at 2 cents or 4 cents really doesn't matter a whole lot at 50 cents, and it certainly doesn't matter a whole lot at $1. I'd be very happy with those increases, and so I think it's more important for me to make sure I have a position.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, we've also seen Pulse Dogecoin go on a huge run here lately. That's
I can't wait for it to $10,000. I'm holding my bag for that.
Yeah,
wait.
cool.
Yeah. That's not a price prediction. I saw something posted somewhere that said it might go to $10,000 someday. And if it does,
yeah, I already got mostly flooded out of it, but hey, I still know some people who have some bags, so I'll be happy for them mostly.
well, one of the ways to deal with both the FOMO and the emotional loss, right, in crypto, is to never sell all of your bag,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this way, if I mean, and I guess there's some cases where that could be argued, get out completely, but that was given away to us for free.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
For sure.
And so I have some, and so I'll just hold it. I did swap some out for Hex, of course. But I've got a small bag, and I'll hold on to that. I haven't gone anywhere towards the ASIC mining though, or anything like that with it. So
I might play around with it. I've still got some of my airdrop left, and we'll see. It certainly sounds interesting, and I can see what the narrative is. So
Yep. I mean, it's just more of the things we like, in terms of ideas. Though I tend to stick closer to the best crypto that's treated me the best, right? So
for sure. And so that's been really exciting to see. There's rumblings of what's going on with Pulse Chain, and I guess the SAC balances got updated since the last week that we streamed on Tuesday. So that's a mild update.
Yeah, I didn't see any huge changes in the wallets that I track, but I think it's worthwhile for everyone to double check, right? Just in case. You don't want to be the one wallet that had a burp, and it didn't get reported. So even though most people have said, hey, it doesn't look like there's a big change, I think it's worth going to just double check.
That's good advice. Yeah. And then in the macro environment, I'm not really sure what's going on. I know that inflation is still high, that people with NFTs still have money. and it seems like the Federal Reserve still plans to continue raising rates, although Ethereum pumped like 5 or 10% today. So I'm not sure what that means. Maybe just, well, I guess I saw supposedly a bunch of short people got wrecked, and maybe that's all it was. So yeah, that's kind of interesting to see. I mean, I know that HEX, it could do well even against like a macro trend, but I think when the money printing starts again, when inflation is curbed, and that'll be a good sign. Although we don't know if that's going to be, you know, a month away or 5 years away. We really don't know. I mean, throughout history, there's been all different kinds of strategies that the Fed has taken. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think we'll know that we're out of it until you're out of it. You
Yeah.
know, which is, yeah, pretty frustrating, right? I mean, it's just like when we're watching, any of these trends on the charts. It takes weeks, months to confirm, you know?
Yeah.
Even now we're watching the charts to see what's happening with ETH and of course HEX and Bitcoin, because while not correlated, maybe, right? According to the proper definition, they're all interrelated and affect each other. All three have been curling up in terms of they've spent enough time at lower prices now that their averages, their shorter term averages are beginning to curl up a little bit. And that usually signals some sort of reversal, but it's not guaranteed, right? And even if it was curling back up and signaling something, you wouldn't be able to confirm it probably for another month, right? Maybe longer. And then specifically, what I'm getting after is you can look on the charts and see that ETH today tested the 111-day moving average resistance and came back off of it, but HEX blew through it. So I don't know what that means, right? Does that mean that HEX will stay above that and, act in some decorrelated fashion, or will we see another downturn in a couple days? But the longer we spend above that number, right, or that trend line, the more likely we'll stay above it.
Yeah.
That's my excellent TA for the evening.
There we go.
Follow the trends, right?
That settles it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to you just send me over that DeLorean. Let me just go 2 years in the future. I'll just skip the next 2 years. I'm good with that.
What if
just put me out there?
What if that's the best 2 years?
All right, we'll go 1 year. And then we'll come back.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I mean, even when I think about like HEX or Pulse Dogecoin, even when I think about my USDC, I just really wish I had the super power already to do time pays me, because then I could just drip my USDC and have it labeled for like buy HEX. I can drip other USDC and have it labeled like live off this. And then even with Pulse Dogecoin, I could just say, all right, like I'm going to dollar cost average out of this over some super long time period. And then I don't have to think about it. And I don't have to worry that I'm going to, make a move and it's going to be wrong. Cause at the end of the day, it's really hard to not time the market.
Yep. Well, and that's because that's our nature, right?
Yeah.
It's as you've spoken about before, right? Fight or flight in particular. Herd animals at the core. You can only overcome that with knowledge and practice. And so, yeah, when, I'm certain anybody has had, well, I'm certain most people have similar experiences. We all know them. We did it ourselves. Something comes up and like, it doesn't have to make sense afterwards. In the moment, it felt like it made sense. Like something new and shiny rolls by. Let's go grab that. And you jump in and then find out, whoop, somebody moved the cheese again. I thought I was chasing alpha, but it was beta.
That's right. Yeah. And so I guess I won't be as secretive as Richard because, there was no sacrifice for Time Pays Me. And it's, going to launch as a finished product right now. There's no promises. But the code is in production and we've been reviewing really and double and triple and quadruple checking how the code gets implemented when it comes to things like, the security layer. That's the stage we're on now that needs to be, I guess, walked through from a game theory down to a coding perspective. And so that's been exciting to see, the other aspects getting done in terms of the code and hopefully being on private testnet soon. So I'm, I'm looking forward to
exciting times.
Yeah. Everything coming together. Of course, we don't know when Pulse Chain will launch, but if Pulse Chain launches, in the next week or something, then Time Pays Me it'll be available. Like after it gets audited, after the code gets finished being produced, then, it doesn't, I'm not going to rush it. It's not an emergency to get it out before Pulse Chain launches. If Pulse Chain wants to launch really soon, I mean, I also think it'd be cool to have it at launch of Pulse Chain. So it's just kind of, we don't know the timelines of either of these software releases, but it'll certainly be something to look forward to.
So were you intending, I know you've spoken a lot about it and time frames go back and forth. Were you intending to implement on Ethereum and allow it to be used?
Yes. Yeah. It should live on Ethereum and Pulse Chain. And it'll be able to time lock any ERC or PRC20 token.
Yep. Well, I think in the past we've talked about some things in this that have to do with budgeting and people managing, their own finances and whatnot. And a lot of people probably heard Dave Ramsey and looked at his videos or heard something like this. When you budget, and what keyed me into this is what you just said a moment ago. When you budget, really giving a goal to or a name to every dollar. I think that's actually a Dave Ramsey term. But anyways, allocating specifically what you're going to do with funds is a very huge step in that type of planning. People use envelope systems. At one time, when I was working with a credit union, right? When I was younger, I couldn't figure out how to keep my damn checkbook balanced, right? I'm just not that kind of guy, right? To be able to do that really well. I know it's simple. I know how to do it. It was before we had Adderall, right? So some of these other things. But anyways, what worked really well though is, hey, you know what I did? I set up my savings account. I set up my checking account. I set up an account for my vacation savings. Wasn't a lot, but I set up an account for Christmas because I needed that. Having kids, being able to save up the money. And you know what happened? Out of sight, out of mind, right? Auto transfers, drip right into those accounts. And lo and behold, when one of those time frames came up, there was money, when the rest of the time I seemed to be going, week to week, and I never want to go back to that. But anyways, that makes me think of what you mentioned.
With your
app.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a common strategy that people use is essentially labeling funds, the so-called envelope system, Christmas saver accounts, and those types of things. And it's really shocking to me, having taken some courses in economics and having learned the field through self-study as well, that, prominent economists refute the idea of labeling funds. They say that it doesn't have any effect on behavior. They say that it doesn't work, that it doesn't matter, that money is money and you can't put a label on it and you can't control yourself for what you're going to do with it. And it's like, I can't wait until we have more blockchain products out there that, I mean, HEX is a great example of, well, you can program yourself to save money. And maybe in the future, as I've said before, there will be ways to time lock Pulse Chain, Pulse X, HEX, maybe even. There will be ways to pay yourself for certain behaviors or to actually label funds in a way that's more accountable to yourself or to the blockchain. At the end of the day, I think that like there's always an oracle problem when you get into trying to tell the blockchain what a person's behavior is when that behavior is not verifiable on the blockchain. So like me saving and storing value over time, like that's verifiable by the blockchain through the HEX contract. So like the behavior of saving is verifiable by the blockchain. And then there might be other behaviors such as quitting smoking tobacco or quitting a bad habit or starting a good habit that would maybe not initially have the security of the blockchain, or wouldn't have a way to for the blockchain to verify it without some trusted third party. However, another kind of interesting take from economics is that sometimes all you need to do is nudge people's behavior, and then that while it doesn't prove to be true crypto, there may be a layer eventually that we see where there is some nudging where you don't have to prove that somebody did something. You just made it so inconvenient for them to cheat that they're back where they started if they go to the effort to cheat. And I think that could be interesting.
Well, there's, coaching is an aspect of that. Trust but verify. If we're not talking about crypto right out in the real world, buddy systems work pretty well. Those types of things, you get that kind of support. Grouping, groups work. But I definitely prefer that we are able to manage our own finances and what we do with crypto rather than some CDBC telling me what I can do. And, and that's kind of, so that's where that's very extreme to say something like this. I've heard other people say it as well, but you can envision a world where for your benefit, right, somebody thinks that managing a CDBC to tell you what you can buy and what you can't buy and where you can allocate funds is the way to go. I just wouldn't buy so many cheeseburgers if I can't get them, so to speak, right? And I'm limited to just so much alcohol, whatever it is that you want to insert there. That goes against my beliefs, right? I don't want a government to do that, but if you as an individual want to do that for yourself, I do support that, right? Because I do think we need those types of structures. And so you have to have a structure somewhere, and it's either going to be in your brain because you take so much omega 369 that you've got a super brain, right? And you're just able to manage it all. But there's a lot of things we're trying to manage, right, as people.
Yes.
And so having a little bit of structure that you can build habits around and follow is a good thing. So I think those economists are wrong, or rather, those economists you mentioned probably speaking to a different problem and solution set than you're talking about. Because what we're talking about is how to make real people who are in pain, or not make them, but give real people who are in pain or having trouble tools. We're not talking about some academic application of, yes, everybody should have 32 accounts and split everything you have down to some unmanageable level. But if somebody, there's probably people listening to this stream that right today, they're doing some stuff that they need to stop, not because I think they should stop, but what I mean is, if from a financial perspective, I'll stick to that. If you're finding yourself overdrawn and you're paying the bank 40, 50 bucks a week or a month, you probably need to figure out what you're doing. Because if you're paying somebody free money because you're making mistakes, you need to figure out how to manage that a little bit better. And if tools like this would help, then that should be something that's available to you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the exact implementation that we have now in Hex and coming with Time Pays Me is going to be focused on people's saving behavior, and particularly the choice of whether people want to try to save themselves from themselves if they experience mad gains. And when we talk about sudden wealth syndrome, I mean, the sudden wealth doesn't even happen if people don't have a way to hold on to the coins whenever they've already gone up 10x or 100x. You know, on the way to 10,000x, you can't sell all of your coins at 100x. You can't sell all of your coins at 1,000x. And to some extent, it's impossible to know even what your own behavior is going to be. People are terrible at predicting their own behavior even days into the future, especially if their environment changes suddenly or if some new trigger or influence comes along. You know, going from relying on paychecks to being financially free, that's a huge environmental change, and that's a huge trigger for a lot of people to really, I think, change so quickly, and to not even, you know, it's like, on one hand, it's so improbable that people are going to pick the right crypto and get the 1000x that, like, some people wouldn't prepare for that reason. But when you do prepare, you actually create a future where it's easier for the price to go up, and where you can prepare for your own success by dollar cost averaging out of something. I mean, that's a piece that's missing from a lot of finance, whether you know, people are left to their own devices, or you know, whether it's somebody buying Bitcoin at a few pennies, and then 10 years later they look back and say, wow, I could have been financially free, but I wasn't, because I sold too early, because I sold on a 5x or a 50x. And so
yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a couple psychological things you mentioned there. One is the it's the sudden wealth syndrome. The other end of the book case on that, if you are, the other bookend is fear of taking profit, which is a whole nother thing, and that's real. That's as real as everything else we talk about, because that leads in the microcosm of crypto. Of course, it's because everybody thinks they're going to get more if they stay longer, right? But in general, everybody's heard that story, or maybe have heard a story about the janitor who passed away single and has no family and has $3 million in the bank, right? Never spent it. And that's because and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I don't know what his lifestyle was, but as an example, I mean, he didn't even leave it to anybody. Right. So he had no plans at all for it. So what was he doing? What could he have done differently? Is that what I would have wanted to do? It's probably not what I would have wanted to do. So if you have a plan that you put together and how you're going to handle your crypto, something that can change as needed, but a plan, which includes, what your hodl bag is, what your stake bag is long term, what you're planning to be able to address at different times, and have at least some idea of what you're going to do. And I think that kind of plan serves people really well.
Yeah. So being able to drip out of something based on the amount of time that you served really gives you the power to plan ahead and to stick to your plan. Because the way that Time Pays Me is a little bit different, or a lot different, you could say, than Hex, is that you can't just nuke your bag halfway through and get your principal back. It's more like every at any moment in the beginning, you can take 10% of an early payday. Plus you get all the time served, but your drip cuts in half whenever you take an early payday, and so it pays you back. Basically, you pay yourself back over the next 20% of the time lock. And so if somebody, so that would mean if somebody time locked for a year and then let's say Pulse Chain or Pulse X did a quick 10x, and so they wanted to take 10% out and sell it, then the person would be waiting. I guess it would be like 10 weeks, because 10 weeks is 20% of a year. And because a week is 2% of a year. And so roughly. And so that, that's how long somebody would be waiting in order to have their drip return to, full force and not be cut in half to pay back the early payday, basically the loan that you're taking from your future self. And then, if we play that out, the person could then decide to switch their behavior, leave the new 10% alone, and strengthen their hands, basically have practice holding coins that are essentially like liquid, although there is a penalty there of 10% of the 10% that gets paid to the people who leave their 10% in. And so people then are kind of put in a situation where they can choose, do I want to let the reward kick back in, or do I want to give up the reward and have my drip cut in half? So either way, people are serving out all of their time.
They're serving their time anyways.
Yeah, one way or another. And it creates a little bit of a dynamic system where you can earn trustless yield by leaving your 10% in the whole time, and the total fee that you pay if you leave your 10% in the whole time is nothing. You actually get paid from the impatience of others when you leave your 10% in the whole time. There's no fee for using the service in that case. If you can leave the temptation alone, the 10% early payday. And then of course you've got the security benefits of being able to reverse a hack. And I think the way that that's actually going to play out is that you'll only be able to reverse it once. Like if you set up your own cold storage wallet as your backup, or you set up somebody else's cold storage wallet or somebody else's wallet as a backup, and you get hacked, now you're going to be waiting for that drip to play out over time with that new address, but you won't be able to add another address later on. You won't be able to reset the funds that are currently playing out in their time lock, because we think it's so important to stop people from trading, because that's one way that you could wreck yourself, is if you were able to cheat the system by pretending like you got hacked and then moving your own funds in a form that became liquid to a different wallet that you control. That would, I think that a lot of people who needed the service the most, maybe to save themselves from the mad gains, basically to save their mad gains from being destroyed by their own short-sightedness. That's basically a major, that's a trade-off that we're making. We're choosing to not give you unlimited lives to survive a hack. Like you can survive one hack per seed phrase, but you can't, you can't get hacked in two different seed phrases, and those are the only two that you set up, and then try to get more lives all of a sudden. Now you can let your funds drip out, and then you can move them into a wallet that has, essentially another life left that isn't going to be a problem until your security would get compromised again if it did. But I think that's probably enough to give people more than they have now, more peace of mind. And the percentage of people that actually get hacked, of course, is pretty low.
Right. Well, and I throw this out too. I know as we're talking about it, some different ideas are kicking around. But really, if you're in this type of ecosystem and you're expecting to, working towards, hoping to get mad gains, you better get yourself a hardware wallet to start with. And
Very true.
that would give you a heck of a lot of security posture to start with, before you even got yourself into a situation where you might have
What
multiple hacks.
my team could get mad at me for saying this, but I like,
Say it. I want to hear it.
all right. I know, like,
I want to hear it.
of course, the hardware wallet is important. What I balance that out with is how do we get mass adoption? And
Mhm.
I think that when I've done deep dives into what is the actual security on a phone, what is the actual security on a desktop, and when I dig really, really deep into that, it's like, wow, that actually is pretty secure. Like, if somebody wanted to come challenge me and say, like, this is how it's not secure, then we could actually have, like, a conversation about it. But it's not like somebody can just get access to your computer and like through spyware, and they can just find out what your seed phrase is on MetaMask, like, without, well, I shouldn't say that people can't do that, but the point I'm trying to make is that I think that there's already really good security when you're using a phone that has a secure enclave chip, and like that really is a lot like a hardware wallet. I think that even when people have a hardware wallet, they still get phished for their seed phrase.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
and
that
so
that that doesn't hardware wallets don't fix that.
so the I think for now, for most people, having a fallback account could be helpful as long as they don't give the seed words up for that as well. And if you spread your security across like multiple people, if you have a more experienced person in crypto who doesn't automatically get access to your funds until you get hacked, and then maybe they help you out and save the day, then that becomes much harder to hack, I would say, than a single person with a single seed phrase with a single hardware wallet, because now you have to trick two people instead of just one.
Oh, sure. Well,
And that's
yeah,
my point.
undoubtedly the product that you're looking to bring to market, even though it's not being sold, right, is going to have that extra feature. So you'd use that in conjunction with the hardware wallet
Yes,
to
absolutely.
give you that little bit extra. Yeah, I get you because right now, and there's a couple sides. So I'm sure there's multiple ways you can look at this, right? So anybody who's dealing with onboards, right? Man, I had a guy contacts me. He says, I created all these wallets and my MetaMask stopped working. And I'm like, well, you're using hardware wallet. No. All right. And so there's very little between at that point, right? There's very little between losing everything and being able to recover that. Now, yes, he can recover it if he has a seed phrase, right? And of course, you'd need that for your hardware wallet too. But it's just so easy when I'm running, fast and loose on MetaMask. Because I'll use hot wallets. I try to use multiple wallets
Mm-hmm.
and try not to reuse wallets. And so I'm not always doing everything deep within a hardware wallet, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just easy, man. With a hardware wallet, I got, I'm just kind of, I guess I'm just digressing, but man, when I use my hardware wallet, even if it's tedious, I got to press those buttons and I got to hit that approval. And more than once I've caught myself and more than once I've screwed up. And it's in with MetaMask the way it is. And actually this kind of goes back to your product as well. With MetaMask the way it is, man, I can click that button and make a mistake fast.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have. But here's the thing: is if I was using the vault, I make that mistake. There's going to be some time that I've got to correct it, right? And that's what you've been saying, right? Because
Yes.
if I'm going to try to pull something out of there, then that'll give me that little bit of delay. Maybe I can address it.
Well, yeah, and it's not just that you have a delay function. It's that you have the pre-selected address to be the recovery address. And so literally a hacker having your primary seed phrase is not enough for them to get your funds if you know that they're trying to make a withdraw.
Exactly.
It's a huge game changer, and I'm kind of surprised it hasn't been done yet. But I think that just the whole idea of people waiting to access their funds is like a new idea in a way that in HEX we're really used to. Like, oh, I have to wait 1 year for this step of the ladder for this batch of coins. I got to wait 15 years for this other batch. Okay, well, I signed up for that. That's fine. But all of the hacks in crypto, in my opinion, are often coming down to the funds moved before you could do anything. There wasn't anything stopping the funds from moving for, let's say, like a week, so that you can, flip a switch to change, to change
in the
control,
first place.
to add more protection at the last minute, or kind of at the before the withdrawal occurs. You have this forced delay, and that but then I see Coinbase instituting that they've got a feature now where they delay the withdrawal for 3 days or so many days. They've got their vault product that they're testing out now, and but at the end of the day, I don't believe that they're going to have all the ingredients to have the perfect storm, to have the killer app, because they come from a centralized point of view, because they incentivize trading, and that's where they make their fees. Whereas, for Time Pays Me, I think that there's kind of like two groups that this would appeal to, is like the people who have a lot of coins, who want to lock them up for whatever reason, because they did well with HEX, because because they want the added security, because they want to save themselves from themselves, because they want to earn trustless yield. And then you've also got the group of people who like want to be onboarded and not have to put so much thought into it. And so for me, I love onboarding family members and friends by gifting $100 worth of HEX. And if you gifted $100 worth of Bitcoin in the early days, and you gifted it in a time-locked form, which I've been doing, that ended up in Bitcoin turning into like over $20 million. So that's a pretty powerful, it's a pretty powerful example of, two ends of the spectrum, where you've got people who, on one hand, maybe don't have a hardware wallet, and like being able to gift somebody $100 worth of crypto without a hardware wallet with added security is like really ideal for that use case, because then you're not spending the $60 or $80 on the hardware wallet itself and missing out on the gains of the crypto. And then on the other hand, you've got people who can have multiple hardware wallets. They can do all kinds of OPSEC security setup. They can do Shamir secret sharing, and it's all compatible with Time Pays Me. It's all compatible with time locking and paying your future self.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I don't mean to suggest that anybody who touches crypto ought to use a hard wallet, but because even when I did my onboards and have done onboards, I was running around trying to give away HEX, couldn't get people to take it lots of times, but the ones that did, we used hot wallets for them. Why? Because at the time it was $30 worth of HEX, and but we began to see, when you see something like that, and kind of what you're talking about now, see something like $30 turn into $1,800, and you're like, so what am I doing with this, and how do I manage this, and how do I control it, right? Because those are the types of increases and gains. I mean, we're not making predictions about what'll happen with Pulse and whatnot, but it would be our hope that we're going to see 100Xs and a lot of tokens, a lot of coins. Maybe some of us are hopeful we'll see 1,000X or 10,000X, and the decisions I'll make with $100 are way different. When I need to compared to when I need to manage or worry about 100,000 or a million, right? And I know it sounds incredible, and anybody has an experience to be like, oh, I'm not going to worry about it now, but it comes on fast, right? So all of a sudden, that fooling around that you were doing, if you hit on the right stuff, you get into the right products and you do the right things, and we think we're in the right, we do think we're in the right ecosystem for this. You suddenly find sudden wealth, and besides the emotional stuff, you got to be able to manage that physically.
Yes. Yeah.
I got more than one story. You guys can go talk to people in the chat. There's probably somebody here to tell you a story. More than one story. The guy dropped his phone into the pond. I'll get the numbers later. I'll get the seed phrase later. There's only a little bit of money, right? But you fast forward a year or two, and he had gotten involved in something. Call it HEX. Doesn't matter what the currency is, and all of a sudden you have that appreciation. You can't get that back. It's gone because you never wrote those seed words down. But yeah, I think all your ideas with the product really reinforce several levels of managing your crypto, and also putting in some fail safes, right? So I like that.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what kind of adoption it gets. And I think just people recognizing the incentives, and deciding for themselves, am I wanting to use this because it has security advantages so I can sleep better at night? Am I wanting to use this because I'm getting trustless yield? Am I wanting to use it so that I can onboard people more easily? Like those are, it'll be, because I don't know what the biggest use case is going to be for most people. I think for me personally, I want more control over my future self when it comes to dollar cost averaging out of something. I like how HEX gave me the ability to say, if the next year I'm only going to live 2 to 4% of my life, my expected lifespan, then I can set myself up so I'm only getting access to 2 to 4% of my savings. And if airdrops come along the way and free up capital, if I do productive things in the world and that adds to the to my life savings, then that's great too. But it's interesting. I was at a friend's wedding over the weekend, and one of the people that I ended up talking a bunch to was like the mother of the best man, and she's a financial advisor, and she was
nice. That must have been a fun conversation, huh?
Yeah, it really was. She loved my pitch about how the DeLorean is a it's a metaphor for what we do in HEX, and she was of course happy to hear that that I was still doing well with crypto, even though crypto has been down a lot and all that good kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that in a minute. Go ahead, finish your story.
I guess the part that really stuck with me is that she was worried about, oh, you didn't, it doesn't sound like you diversified very much. And I didn't want to like go in on her about like, well, diversification isn't always the best strategy. But it really came down to more like, I'm in this to play the experiment out. And I've already made a decision with my past self that is going to determine how my future self like gets to play the game, unless I bring in new money. And so for me, I've already cashed out more than I put in. And I recognize the opportunity to hold up the price for myself and for others. And that's a valuable function. That's part of the value. That's part of what money is is storing value. And there's no better way to store value than to provably force myself to lock it up. So
Yeah.
what were you going to say?
Oh, you reminded me of something when you said the lady said she was very happy that you're still doing okay.
Yeah.
I got tons of concern that came towards me once we went into the bear and afterwards, and because I wasn't really worried or thinking about it, kind of took me by surprise. But when you retire early, everybody just assumes, oh, it's because you must have been trading Bitcoin, right? Because that's what the assumptions are. And of course, that's not what I'm doing. And I would tell everybody that what I was doing, but there's a reason a lot of people don't get it yet. Anyways, just reminded me of that humorous situation where I am looking forward to us pulling out of this and going in a different direction and being able, because some people just aren't going to understand until they see it. I mean,
Yeah.
as silly as it sounds, right? I think it was Rags to Riches did the video where he gave the Christmas gift to a family,
I think so.
right? So I tell you about, and this is unfortunate, this is how people generally are, not everybody. I try to sell somebody on the idea of getting into HEX because you want to pay yourself in the future and blah, 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 in one ear out the other. My hit rate's maybe 10%, 5% of the people, right? I'm not doing this, but if I set $20,000 in cash on their table, they're probably going to listen to me. And I'll probably be having them chasing me around trying to give me money to buy HEX for them, right? Because that's just how people react, right? So they see the material stuff, they see somebody doing well in the games, and all of a sudden they want to know about it. But of course, we all know that's late in the game, or at least later in the game than you want it to be.
Yes.
Because they would have done a heck of a lot better. Like I have a guy who's chasing me about Pulse, and he says, help me out. I'll pay extra, right? I'll give you extra. I'm like, no, I don't want to give you any of my Pulse because I don't know what's going to happen, right? And I don't want to, I said, why don't we just wait and see what happens? He's a good friend. I mean, I would help him out, but I don't want to be in a situation where he pays me and then the price goes down 90%, and then I'm like the bad guy because I took advantage of him. And and on the other side, I don't want it to go up 100x after I give it to him, so I won't do it. But it's this kind of interesting, human nature kind of things that we all deal with, I think. But.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a hard sell when it's a better deal, for sure, and that's yes, kind of part of human nature. I think that the whole idea of paying your future self is really hard to sell people who are affected by inflation, because the value of saving goes down the more inflation you suffer. It's a kind of a punisher that not everybody even realizes they're being punished with, but it gets through on some some subconscious level for sure. So it's, especially in other countries where inflation is higher, I've noticed trying to explain even the idea of saving anything in any currency just seems mad to people. Yeah. And so that's, I think, where it really makes a difference to use the example of Bitcoin versus the example of fiat, and to try to, get people to see that somehow. But in a lot of cases, people are going to have to experience it.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of that evokes a whole bunch of emotions. I got a whole bunch to say about that. I might jump on a soapbox and start ranting.
Go for it.
I won't do that. I have a soapbox, sir. But I'll tell you, at the surface of that, it's true that there's certainly different cultures and different parts of the world who have really been hit too hard with inflation. And so, yeah, that's exactly true, right? They would look at it and say, why put money in the bank? Look at the US. It wasn't inflation, but there was no yield. right? So how many people had incentive for 0.01? You know, like I can still remember on tax returns having to put the interest into my tax return that I earned on my checking account. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Doesn't happen. You know, it doesn't matter how much I got in there. There's not enough to worry about. The other thing, and this is conspiratorial type stuff, but you know, business is business, and a lot of these corporations, I don't know if you call them evil or not. You call them whatever you want to call them, as label wise, but the output, the end game is that people are in debt, and you're encouraged to be in debt, and you're not encouraged to save. And if you have even more reasons not to save and not to take care of yourself, you'll do that, you know. And so if you're not thinking about it and planning for it, that's what you end up with, is just this continual spiral of, yeah, you just continue to gain debt. Now, I suppose there's the most socialistic folks would say, well, if the debt's never called, who cares? You die with it and it just goes away. I've met people who think that way, right? The thing is sometimes the debt gets called. And sometimes you need things, and I don't mean need, right? There's things you need, whether it's care or, you know, something that, seriously that you need to buy a car, or you take care of your family in some way, and you just don't have it because you just don't have enough credit, as you're already up to your eyeballs. And so the only thing you can do is work and work multiple gigs, and that's good, right? A lot of people watching this probably do that, you know. Multiple gigs at the same time, side gigs, you know, whatever they can do to do it. But so yeah, they go in that direction to do that. But then you find out, you get to a certain age, everybody will be different. I don't care how invincible you think you are, you ain't doing the same things when you're 60, 70, 80, 90, right? And now the likelihood is most of your listeners are probably going to live to be 90 years old, maybe longer. And we talk about longevity. We'd like to see people live even longer, but you know, based on that science, some of them are going to go a lot longer than that. So ultimately, we end up coming down to is that you probably can't count on the government to take care of you, any government per se, in a way that you would want to be taken care of. And everybody else has their own problems. And sure, some people have really strong networks and community that get some help, but ultimately it comes down to you, personal responsibility, where you got to figure it out. It's up to you, right? Nobody else is going to figure it out for you. And so that's where things like what you do with the show and what we're doing with cryptocurrency and, you know, time pays me, type of things, it all kind of fits into that for this group of people who are interested in hearing about it. Give them the tools, right, to be able to do better for themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, the model of everybody being in debt and not really being free to be their best self, to focus on their own care. I mean, that comes at a detriment to ultimately people's productivity. I mean, if there, I think that there's a misconception, and I don't believe in central planning anyway, so I can't tell you that this is right, but it strikes me that a lot of people who are in good health, who retire early, they end up staying productive in one way or another, whether it's caring for family members, whether it's, finding some creative hobby that turns into a business or turns into some way that they're serving others. Even myself, I still work a lot of hours to like bring people content and to organize events and to get the word out about crypto. And I mean, it's this whole idea of like, if everybody escapes the matrix and like stops being in debt, or if everybody was financially free, I think that there's this misconception that the world would collapse because of that. And I'm not sure that that is necessarily true. I would not say that that's the only way that the economy could go, because you might end up with better rested people who work smarter, not harder. And if central planning really doesn't perform as well as people who are motivated by their own passions and by the self-rewarding principles of problem solving and being useful in the world, I think that there's a lot of potential that's gone untapped by just enslaving everybody to paycheck.
No, it definitely does stifle innovation and growth, I believe. RH probably has a good saying about this, having to do with people. But even if there's a chance that the whole world implodes because everybody does better, that's no reason. There's no reason to not try to help people do the things they want to do. Um, I guess if truly the world was going to implode, I might rethink that. But but in the context of our society can't handle the fact that everybody would be able to take care of themselves, type of thinking, dude, that's so far off. We got how many billion people? In the world, is it up to 7 billion now? I forget the number, but so they all ain't getting on board. Not today. Got a long road to go. There's probably 50, 100 years before you'd be in a situation where the world's, civilization's going to collapse because people are doing too well. There's just too many things that can happen.
And I also think if everybody locked up their money for 7 years, then in essence, it would be like just delaying and causing the capital to be possibly used more efficiently, even if it was worth the same, even if it had the same purchasing power at the end of the day, which of course we don't know if it would have more or less, but just that long-term mindedness could lead people to make smarter decisions that aren't being pressured by inflation. I think that there's a lot of capital lost to inefficiencies created by loose monetary policy. And so when you look at like half of the companies in the S&P 500 are losing money, they're zombie corporations that they're being kept alive by easy money, but they're not being so productive that they're putting more energy into the economic system than they're taking out. It's like, I think there are things that people have backwards in economics, and the best way to prove that is to just create an alternative tool that gives people the freedom to choose. Yeah, like I do want to lock up my economic energy, and if I do that, I might end up continuing to be productive. And just because the world isn't spending their money faster and faster, just because the velocity of money isn't increasing, it's like who says that the velocity of money, that the perfect velocity of money is always going to be faster? What if we hit a point where maybe instead of the velocity of money being 1 year or 5 years, that like 6 months is enough, and maybe it needs to be longer now?
Yep. And all this, and I enjoy these kind of conversations, but all this is academic, right? In that when we start talking about this at this level and the reasons to not do things, so like, I shouldn't do it because of this, and I shouldn't do it because of that. You know what? They're real people that need some real help. So give them real tools to help them, and methods to do that, and the support they need. And actually, Time Pays Me has been fairly FUD free. I haven't heard anybody fudding, what you're working on, at least nothing harsh. But if there was going to be an argument, it would be along those kind of veins, like, oh, it's just silly to do this. But you know what? It's not for you. If you think it's silly to do it and you can't be convinced, that's fine. What this is a tool for people who want to use it. It's not for people who don't want to use it, right? It's a free tool, relatively free. I mean, you reach very small amount, but free tool to help you with managing your crypto. So I mean, that's how my view. That's what my view is. You choose to use it or don't, but it's a great service, I think, for people who might want to use it. So
the part I'm still trying to decide is what's the max length time lag. Still haven't
1,000 years.
Haven't come to any new conclusions.
There's a Hexagon born already that's going to live 1,000 years, so we should probably might be one of the young ones. Maybe consider that 1,000 years.
Well,
that's
it's
probably
like
outside your range. But.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it seems like there should be kind of a balance, as I said maybe last week, that there should be a balance between like how much gas is everybody having to pay to like compute your payout, even if that's done in a more efficient way. Once you start going from 10 years to 30 years or from 30 years to 300 years or whatever it's going to be, it's like you're adding more no matter how efficiently you do it. You're adding some extra computation on the blockchain. And then the other question is more from a psychological point of view, like how do you want, like how much power do you want to give people to not have to touch any of their money for a certain length of time? Because when we look at like compound interest, when we look at like HEX, I mean, just the early end stake penalties that you could have gotten by year 15, or if you do a second 15-year stake, I mean, it's massive. I mean, it could be like double because you haven't touched it. But if every touch point that you have, then you kind of give yourself a chance to wreck yourself in the sense of being able to sell it all at once. And the drip kind of fixes that along the way, but still you could get into a situation where you've dripped 90% of your time, and because of price appreciation, you still have 100% of what your principal was, because so many people have paid fees over 10 or 20 or 30 years because they've locked shorter than you have.
Yeah.
And so
well, yeah, from that perspective, I hope my sense of humor around the 1,000 years comes across, but in case anybody thinks I suggested, that's kind of funny. But we have a number that's pretty usable already in the HEX system. Not suggesting it should be that number, but if those types of inequalities will happen because of different people doing longer types of stakes, and you need to correct them. One way to do that would be to cinch in the maximum times, right? So you get a good turnover, right? 3, 6, 9 in terms of years are pretty good variables for when things phase in and out. Yeah. Anyways, I'm just thinking out loud, but.
Yeah, currently I'm considering kind of the differences between maybe having a 10-year maximum lock and a 30-year maximum lock. That, I mean, it doesn't seem like a big difference, but to what actually happens in the system, I think it's going to make a really big difference. So that'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. And if anybody wants to weigh in, you can still join the Telegram and let me know what you think. T.me/smartvaultme or T.me/timepaysme.
Send it. Smart vault me.
And like another point that I'm like going back and forth on is like, should it be less than HEX or should it be more than HEX? Like HEX, I think, was originally designed to have longer staking than 15 years. And then the computational load of the Ethereum network caused it to be limited to 15.2. Because compound interest is really about, giving people the chance to do something really long term. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter as much, because basically you can do that thing I described in the tweet thread that everybody should check out by going to Time Pays Me Twitter. But I talked about how you can have like kind of a cash flow option of, if you get trustless yield coming in, you can see it, and then you can pay yourself with your drip so that you always maintain kind of 100% of your principal, but you're getting paid out along the way. Is one way people could use the system, presumably. And so you could like only live off your interest, only drip out the amount of interest you've received of course, that's in the denomination of the coin that you locked. So if you time lock Pulse X, you're getting paid in Pulse X whenever somebody takes their 10% early payday. So in a sense, people still have a way to kind of control themselves, but to still take profits along the way. So maybe a longer time lock isn't as much of a problem. We'll see what people think.
Yeah, I appreciate you getting that feedback from the community, right? Because those will likely be the people who are interested in using it.
Yeah, I think so. And then, if the max is 10 years, then you wanted to do longer, then you have to have that moment of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
10 years in, but then you can hear me going back and forth. It's like, but then if you're dripping out along the way, you can drip into something, you can ladder yourself basically. So by the time you've served 10 years, you could have 90% of your bag already time locked for another several years, because you took the drip along the way and then restaked it for longer. So, and that's I think that's an important like behavioral pathway. That's like an important option, because in my opinion, that keeps somebody's strong hands, and it keeps them like actively participating in paying your future self and getting paid by your past self. And like you're the person who's kind of keeping up the right behavior of saving. Like saving is rewarding to you because you're getting more along the way. And so those are the arguments to like keep it shorter, keep it long. It's undecided. Anyway, what other aspects are interesting to discuss? Or what other topics do we have for tonight?
What's the chat got to say?
Tobiwan Hexobi is like supposed to be on screen, and he's just in the chat. So
come replace me. Come. I got my Jedi robe. I'll put that on. I'm ready. I went to Disney World a couple weeks ago, man. Yeah. Went on the new Star Wars ride. It was cool. Dude, technology's killer, man. And it's way off topic for this, but boy, I like to see how all this stuff comes together. And, meeting crypto and gaming. I mean, the game technology is just off the hook. And these, I get that these rides and stuff aren't game technology, but you ever see that movie Avatar?
Yes.
Right. And I forget what the animal's called that you fly. That they used to fly around in, but they have a new ride at Disney World. It's like a 200,000, maybe it's a 200. It can't be 200,000. Probably going to be $100 million, $200 million ride. For my 1.5 minutes, I get to ride on it, right? But it was pretty amazing, pretty amazing. I mean, complete immersion You know,
Cool.
right down to air and water. Now, what the hell has that got to do with crypto? Well, in the whole microtransaction world of the future, right? Where you're doing your gaming at home and all the rest, all these features and stuff all need to be monetized in some way to be provided, right?
Mm.
And to do that, they need third party trustless systems, right? A lot of growing pains, but it should be an interesting next 20 years. You know, I love to see Hex be the. I don't know that that's the end game for Hex, but I sure would like to see that be part of part of those types of systems and
Part of
whatnot.
the experiment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Part of
Well,
the
certainly something on
new
Pulse
tech.
should be. You know, I mean, there's all sorts of things getting pushed onto Pulse. So we'll at least have the exposure in that way to that type of gameplay. Anyways, way off topic, but the Toby one made me think of that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that. So Tobiwan might jump on here, or we might wrap it up. It could go either way. I know something that we're going to be doing next week is we'll have Abit and Patrick on.
Oh,
They
nice.
are going around to different streams premiering their new documentary.
Yeah, I like that. Did you see some clips?
I sure did. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
cool,
awesome.
huh?
And they've interviewed many people who are at different points in the Hex journey. Some are brand new, some have been in for a little bit, and others are they've really seen the whole ride. But their documentary, the pieces that I've seen is great. It really speaks, I think, to different audiences and that sort of thing. So that's something that we can all be looking forward to. I also I would love to do a stream with like everybody who's been on the show like for weeks and weeks and weeks. Like if I can get together with Whales Only and Kareem, I think that would be like really bullish and like fun for the community. So I don't have that worked out yet, but that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to trying to arrange. I've also got a lot of excitement for the YouTube tutorial stuff. I did the first video a couple weeks ago now, and there's a number of people who have started up channels since then, or they've continued to make content, whereas before they maybe weren't doing it as much as they can be now. And so I've seen people really do some awesome work, and it's been really inspiring. And so I hope I can keep up with trying to teach as many tips and tricks as I can before the HEX conference comes to an online YouTube near you here in January. So that's like 2.5 months away. And
that's no time, man. You need to get started, right?
That's right. So the place people can go to learn more about becoming a HEX YouTuber is t.me/HEX YouTube.
I did another video today, mostly because I didn't want to, because I remembered that you did that, and I didn't want the question to come up and be like, you haven't made any more videos since the last time we talked. So, because that's the thing too, right? People, it's not like I don't have anything else to do, but there's some planning to do things well, and I'm still a little new at doing it, getting it out there on streamed out. It was working out okay, but until you do it, you don't know what you need to do, right?
Yeah. It's a learning process. People have different styles, which is certainly great to see. Some people, are doing a short rant from their car. Other people, they've put together materials and they're walking people through a certain point that they have. So, yeah.
Well, I have two things I could bring up here. One not so controversial. I added some new things to our site, the Hexfire site. Yeah, people come up with different viewpoints on things. You know how we have the share rate model. So we have and maybe I said this already, but put a new chart up there that allows you to just look at each day and what the amount of increase is going to be potentially on that day. And so what
Cool.
that allows you to do is it's a different visual than just seeing a line chart to go up. And then I started digging into a different thing. Came to realize that other than us talking about it, oh, if you want to show that chart, just go over to charts, and you see it down there on the bottom right, the green and red and yellows, all those pretty colors.
Wow.
So everybody processes things differently, right? Like I understand this, I made it, but it wasn't my idea, right? Because it's not where my head goes for how I would do this. So if you were going to look and say, I don't know, you want to change the date or something, you could change it to like some smaller date time frame. You know, either slide them together or otherwise. And you wanted to look at your chart, you'll see that you begin to see the days that there are actually going to be changes planned. I shouldn't say planned, but where the system is likely to emit a change. And so you can make your planning and just go on days where it's going to be 0. Because it's likely that even if it does go up on those days, it's not going to be 1,000 or 500 hex, because there'd have to be a pretty good stake that got in there.
Yeah, this is really cool.
And like I said, everybody processes differently, right? So some people react better than this. Some people react better to text. Some like the line chart. I guess I'm more like a line chart guy.
Yeah. So, and this is based on the future market supply chart that is somewhat dynamic, but somewhat set for the people who.
Well, it's it's definitely dynamic. Like these numbers will all change. We know that they'll change. But what's important is when you see really big changes, or even medium-sized changes, you know that those are going to exist in the future. So the magnitude may change, but there'll still be big steps.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting.
Yeah, if you pop back over to charts when you get ready, I'll show you the other one. I had finally just realized that if you go down bottom left, that I didn't have any way other than me going to look for it. Didn't have any way to know how many stakes were made every day and how many were ended. Now I can go over to Hex Vision and get that. But I'm doing it a different way when I do that. And then the question's been coming up, well, how many TShares, So that's what this one's about, with the two different charts that are there, column charts. One you can drill in and look at the amount of stakes, the count of stakes that have been made on days. And the other, it's the number of TShares going in and out, So, and it actually was kind of surprising to me. I don't know why it was surprising, but those numbers by year are pretty close for the TShares.
Yeah. Oh, they sure are.
Which is bullish. That's super bullish. So like you could go over to 2022 on the lower chart, and you could right click and drill into that. It'll say drill down.
Nice.
I mean, those numbers are really close, right? So we had one month that it's obvious that we saw an awful lot more come out than went in. I mean, I got a couple others that it was a little higher, but I guess what's bullish about this for me is it shows a couple different things. That there is recycling of TShares taking place. New people are coming in and getting more TShares. People are closing out their stakes, skimming their yield and restaking. I know I've got that FOMO feeling, so I'm doing that. So this is very strong for us, I think, considering we're in this kind of bear mode at the moment,
Totally.
All right. So
look at September. September, there were more TShares put in than taken out.
Yeah. And if we weren't getting the interest in the chain, what you'd be seeing is a drop off. And you can't count the last month because it's not finished yet. We're 10/25. So even those numbers are a little bit lower than September. We still got 5-6 days. And if you drill in to October and go down a little bit further to the day, you can see the numbers. If you hover over, it'll tell you. I mean, you're getting a pretty good amount of stakes coming in every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then some of these that are ending, they could end up becoming the purple line later on if they get back in the game.
Yeah, they definitely do, right? There's some of the other charts that we look at that have to do with staking timeframes show that pretty clearly, because we do have people that are staking 1, 2 days, 3 days, and they're not doing it once a month. They're doing it 10 times a month.
Wow.
Right. So you do have that happening. And it really is a phenomenon that's out there. Now, I think we've spoken about it before. I think there's some reasons some people would do that, because they have a much bigger ladder. They might be part of that movement to increase the share rates faster, and they want to do that. It could be that they have other commitments that cause that. There might be some contracts running. But generally speaking, the short staking that has been taking place has been really sticking to the idea of restake your principal, get your same number of TShares, but take your yield. And so I think you see a lot of that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
If you can get the same number of TShares, which, by the way, I don't think maintaining level of TShares is the game anymore. I think it's preserving is probably a better way, preserving the count. Without going out much longer, it's very hard to do that. And just as a side note, the HSIs coming from Hadron are playing a huge part in this, because pretty much anybody who makes HSI stake now, they're going out Quattro Cinco. The incentive is there, so I think most of that community is going to go Quattro Cinco. There might be a few that don't, but
yeah.
And then the most controversial thing, as I started it that way, I was hoping maybe Toby would come on because he'd have a lot to say about this and present it the right way. I was asked this week about emergency end staking, and somebody threw out the idea to me on Twitter. Hey, would it make sense? I had to be really careful with this. Would it make sense to emergency end stake a stake that's 50% complete and then restake it Quattro Cinco? And so the very first thing I'd say is not an endorsement for emergency end staking. I'm not endorsing emergency end staking. People really need to look very closely at this stuff. But I have that emergency end staking calculator up here that tells you what your stakes would get. And, I emergency end staked maybe 10 stakes before big payday. And it was based on that RG3 epiphany that, wait a minute, I have these stakes that are going to end every month after big payday. This totally doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
To do it this way. And so I did emergency end stake. So just for, qualification with this, I did that. But I didn't go out like the same number a month, right? That would be silly. I went out, 4 years, 7 years, 12 years, 15 years on those when I did it. And I'm very happy with the outcome. Very happy. All right. So that being said, I have kind of a little bit of experience with doing the emergency end stakes. I don't condone it. I don't think it's great. You can go to the charts and see that, man, people get beat up and they lose a lot of their HEX. And I'd rather be forward looking than backward looking and trying to like correct these other things. But all that being said, yeah, there are cases where if you've already served greater than 50%, and maybe some other cases, edge cases too, if you were to emergency end stake and restake for Quattro Cinco, you would get more TShares.
Well, and I would say that there's a big difference between if you were if you started the stake before a big payday, you're going to lose your big payday bonus. If you emergency end stake,
That's right.
I think even a day early,
Yeah, you don't. Well, yeah, and that's because the way the penalties are calculated. So, and that's a good observation. That would fall into the category of a stake where you could not emergency end stake and get more TShares. And for clarification, the way the contract works is that you lose if you're past 50%, you lose the first half of your yield, right? And it's not half of your yield; it's what was paid out in the first half of your stake, right? And if big payday was in the first half of your stake, you're out. But if you look at something, and we were looking at an example that was stake 9/11, 21. Yeah, it would be 21. And so at this point, it was staked for 2 years, and it's just over the 50% mark. And the TShares that the guy had was like 0.95, and by going out Quattro Cinco, it gets them to 1.5, 1.5.
Oh, cool.
So then that made me start thinking about this. So I'm not prepared to commit that that's a good idea or a bad idea. I think generally emergency end staking is bad.
Yeah.
Hey guys.
Toby.
Hey, is my sound wrecked? I hope not. Audio okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Well, if it gets weird, let me know. I've got 2 earbud options. It seems like it's hit and miss when I've been on with the discourse guys. Like sometimes the laptop mic is fine all night, and then other times it gets shitty. So thanks for hanging out a little longer, Maddie. I hope I'm not keeping you like way past your viable streaming life for this evening, and I appreciate the invite. So, but I mean, if you're wore out, man, we can make it. I can just kind of say hi and try to, add a little Toby perspective on some things. And Crispy, I was wanting to talk to him about some of the FIRE thing that he's got going on. So I just didn't know like how.
Well, go ahead and put your headphones in, and we could go another 20 or 30 minutes, and
that's cool. Right on. Let me see if I can get these to connect easily. Sometimes I got to drop out and back in, but worst comes to worst, I might just do it from my phone and say fuck the laptop.
So, Crispy, what were you saying there?
On which part? When I was moving my mouth and no sound, or the other part?
So basically, this idea that like for people who got in before big payday, it would be really pretty silly for most people. It'd be
I'd say for all
a
people.
worse deal.
Yeah,
a worse deal. If you got in after the person who bought on like September 11th, 2021 was buying near an all-time high, and they, so yeah, I mean, if they've served 1 year out of 2, then they're going to have to do the math for themselves. They're going to have to make their own financial decision and really understand how the contract works, and decide what they're giving up and decide if it's worth it. There were unusual, I would say, circumstances like you described, where right before big payday, it made sense for some of us who had stakes ending right after or right before or after big payday I guess it was just right after big payday to do longer stakes that would give way more TShares and more bonuses and wouldn't be that expensive to end early compared to how much would be gained. And I think I did 1 or 2 like that myself.
Yeah, again, I always try to be really careful with any of this data stuff we talk about, because you don't want to encourage people to do things that might get them wrecked. So they need to
Yeah.
make sure that they do their own research. But I did find it intriguing to be thinking about this, because I'm staking, right? I still continue to stake. And so I always make that decision about going out Quattro Cinco or not. And I made some Quattro Cincos last month.
Mm.
And so anyways, I was just kind of like, well, maybe I have any stakes in that situation? I don't know, but it brought up an interesting set of ideas,
Yeah.
And I just know that if somebody's asking me about it, there's probably some talk going on somewhere in the community about it.
There's still some background noise there.
Yeah, I'm striking out, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Okay. Is it horrible?
That's actually better at the
Is
moment.
it better? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what's changed. Yeah, it's so weird. It's like I've got Jabra earbuds, and I've got the 75Ts and the 85Ts, and there are times that they will connect right away. But I don't like anything like staying in my connected list, so I always delete them like when I'm done using them, and then I have to reconnect when I start. And then there's times that like they just won't find them. They're like my laptop just won't find it at all.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't find either set of buds. So I'm kind of stuck. So hopefully it's not abysmal. But yeah, and Maddie, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's like it's always a pleasure to string with you. And it's like I didn't want to get like weirdly emotional and like too gushy, but I really cannot say strongly enough how glad I am that you are such a figure in our community, because of your breadth of knowledge with psychology in particular. I think it is just imperative, especially in something that can become so emotional like investing. You don't really think about it because, you think of like math being, black and white and numbers, and, it's kind of like, the arts are the thing for the emotional people, right? And then like the math stuff is like for the people that like a black and white world, and they like numbers and they like things, balancing, and, and I've got both of those sides of me, which everyone does to varying degrees, but it's like crypto, because of that volatility, I feel like it adds a lot more of an emotional component. And, the thing that I feel like I was just thinking about this when I was blowing leaves earlier, and it seems like because we had this stale period for so long with the bear market is boring, and after you've dropped so far, you're sideways for how fucking long. And then there's no real updates to be had with Pulse Chain and whatever. And then there's these streamers that are coming along, and they're trying to build a following, and they're trying to learn, and they're trying to, kind of carve out their niche, just like, you and Hexo and RG and all like the early Hex guys had opportunity to do. But there was such this like wealth of information coming from Richard on the regular, whether it was him doing a long live stream, whether it was, new information or just a deeper dive into TShares or, all that stuff. And it's like, I know Maddie and I have talked in private, and Patrick from Crypto Sparbuck and, Papa, tons of different people in the community have all talked about how for us, because we've done it so long, it kind of gets boring, because it's like you've said it so many times and you know it inside and out. But the thing is what's easy to forget is there's new people coming along all the time. And it's remarkable to me as I like get into some of these other Telegram groups and stuff and kind of lurk around and watch what other, projects are talking about and doing, that it's not only that there's people in there that are saying they're Hexagon, which is whatever, you can call yourself Hexagon if you have one Hex, I don't care. It's not it's not the label thing for me as much as how little knowledge they have about Hex and why it's even a good thing to be in. And it's like, I'm glad you're in. I'm glad you're calling yourself a Hexagon, but it's like, you don't even understand TShares. Like, and I know that that's kind of like the end of like maybe not the end of the path, but like an advanced topic in Hex as you get into. It took me probably 6 months before I really like the light bulb went on, and I'm like, oh my God, TShares, what am I doing? And then my staking ladder before and after is vastly different, because I literally had like these tiny little stakes coming out like every day for a while, because I'm like, well, I'll try that, and if it's going to do 10,000 X, then and then it's like, they end up wrecked because like the gas fees are shit. And then But I don't know. I just feel like with some of these newer streamers, it's like they haven't really gone there like we all did and really just beat the drum about HEX and like really made an effort to like teach about it. And it's not that, I mean, I think a little bit of it's the shiny syndrome thing. Like there's a new shiny thing and it's fun to talk about. And it's like, hey, there's this gambling token, and hey, there's meme token, and hey, there's this other thing, and this does that, and this does that. And it's like the new hot girl that moved into the neighborhood, you know, and everyone's like, hey, did you see Betty Sue, you know, strolling down to the bus stop or what? You know what I mean? It's like everybody's talking about the new girl when there's like the super fucking hot girl that you've been with for like 3 years, and it's like you've gotten bored with her. But there's so many more layers to that girl, and it's a weird turn that I've taken, but it's like there's so many more layers to that. It's almost like a long-term relationship, you know, because it's like when you're in a long-term relationship, I mean, like an early part of a relationship, it's super exciting, and it's like, you know, you're in love and the endorphins are flowing. And I mean, I think Maddie could attest to this. I mean, I think there were some studies that showed that being in love is akin to like schizophrenia on a certain level, as far as just like the dopamine levels and the way that your brain processes stuff in those times. It's a little crazy, you know. It's like, and then as you get to know someone a little more and that kind of shine wears off, you know, I think that's where a deeper love can come in a relationship, when you spend the time to like learn more about the layers of that person and like and get a deeper connection, right? So not to equate, I guess this is a little less weird than like making it like a cult, making it religious, but it's like now I'm making it about an intimate relationship. But I think that's kind of the thing that's missed. It's like, you know, they're like paying attention to the shiny new thing when there's so much complexity to like this beautiful girl that's like been here for almost 3 years, and, you know, nobody's, you know, wanting to find out about her history and like, you know, what she thinks about art or books, or, you know, like, you know, what her, you know, what shaped her into who she was. It's the same thing with HEX. It's like there's so much stuff that I feel like just kind of got like the quick, like, you know, gloss over, and then they're off to these other things. And it's like, I don't fault them for it. I get it. It's hard. I mean, Maddie, you know, it's like, God love you. It's like, I don't know how you and Hexo and guys like you and RG and those guys, how you continue to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it is a lot of the same stuff, but somehow you're all able in your own ways to keep it fresh and keep it entertaining and keep it educational, because I think you have an understanding that not everybody is at your level. Not everybody came in the same day you came in. And even if they did, they might not learn at the same pace you did, or might not have focused on the same parts of it. So you keep coming at it from different angles and keep it interesting and keep it fresh. And I just feel like, you know, 3 years from now, I just have this weird feeling. And I've been doing this a lot on Twitter, where it's like, remind me of this tweet, you know, like I'll see someone post about, you know, like, I don't know if it was on your stream or somebody else's the other day, I was talking about, you know, the whole Zen thing, and everyone's freaking out because, oh, you're blowing that money on gas. And, you know, if all of us took that millions of dollars in gas and bought HEX with it, what could have done to the price? And whatever. People are going to do what they want to do with their money, right? It's like, you know, I don't try to judge. I try to educate. I try to tell people what I would do. Ultimately, it's their own choice. But then my argument to that was like, okay, if you're okay with spending $150 on gas to mint this free coin that you will acknowledge maybe isn't going to be worth anything for maybe 8 years, then take $150 and buy HEX and stake it for 8 years. Just, I mean, how hard is that, right? I mean, if you can afford 150, you can afford $300. You can figure it out. And then just see what plays out which way. I have the utmost confidence that HEX thing's going to play out better. Now, could it be the other way around, where one of these other shiny objects is going to kick its butt? Short term, maybe. 8 years, I don't think anything that's out there now has a shot. I mean, I just don't think it's there, because there's so much of a foundation that's already built within HEX, with almost a 7-year average staking length, you know, billions of dollars locked up, and we're at what, 4 cents? I mean, come on. It's like, if we just approach the all-time high again, it's like, just do the math, people. You know, it's like, billion sounds like a lot. Now multiply that times 15, because that's pretty much puts us back to all-time highs. How many billions is that? Locked up for an average of 7 fucking years. I mean, those people aren't going to walk away from those bags. They're committed. And because of the truth engine and the tokenomics and the pumpamentals and all the, like, the stuff that keeps you engaged and keeps you coming back to, like, check on your stakes. And then you have to decide, like, am I going to scrape the interest and try to live off of that? Am I do I want to retain my T-share rate? So I'm going to restake all of it. And then now all of a sudden, because the T-share rate went up, I need to put more fiat in because I don't want to lose my rank. I mean, there's so much nuance to it that not to talk out of both sides of my neck, but it's like, yeah, sometimes I get bored with it because it's like I've said it to so many people, the same thing over and over. But at my core, I'm still super excited about it because it's like that's what makes me as at peace as I am. And it's like I'm not living on my HEX. I've yet to cash out a single HEX. I was very fortunate to be able to retire. Yeah, and it's like I'm very, and I wrecked my cost average. I mean, I've been buying in since the top and considerably more fiat than I ever put in the first year and a half. So, my cost average is like, for a minute there, I thought I was going to be in the red. And who would think an OG, a day two OG would ever be in the red, right? Because it's like, oh, all the OGs are balling, blah, blah. Well, some of us kept fucking buying. Some of us were exit liquidity for other people. And guess what? That's kind of how that works, right? Because every buyer's got to have a seller. And there was a value prop for me. So it made sense for me to do it.
It depends what your time horizon is. It really does.
Yeah,
because if you're valuing your wealth in HEX terms, then, then you're the one who's been accumulating. And so you're the one who's going to benefit that much more when when the price starts performing to the upside again.
Right. Exactly. And like there was a guy the other day, it's like he tweeted something about how, I forget what day it was. Maybe it was like I think he had bought it like 43 cents. So like whatever that was, it was like a year to the day, like that he had bought in for the first time. Now he's bought in since, so obviously his cost average down, but that was his introduction to HEX. 43 cents is when he found out about it. And that's when he got in, and he was kind of lamenting it a bit on Twitter. And I said, well, you know what? I bought in at 43 cents also, but I staked it. And then I chatted with the guy a little bit, and he's staking too. So he knows what he's doing, but I staked it. So it's like, am I down 90% from 43 cents to 4.2? No, because I am earning on that particular bag that I'm talking about that I bought around 43 cents. I'm earning around 36, 37% yield. So I have that much more in that 1 year that I stake. Now I can't touch it for like, I forget what it is, like 12 years or something on that one, but still time horizon, you know what I mean? And it's like, and then the other little thing too, just before I get too manic about it, is when people are excited about these other shiny things, I get it. And I understand. It's like, I talked to Feeder, I talked to some other people in the community that, they are interested in these other little things, and it's intellectually stimulating, right? And I'm a math nerd, so it's like I get into like reading about some of this stuff, and I've got like a little play bag that I've dabbled with some stuff, and I lost some money on Dodeca. I'll admit it. I was a dummy and I threw in a few $100 and thought, hey, why not? I saw David talk about it. I did not do my own research. That was the extent of my research. I am a case study for that example, right? You as a streamer mention something like that, someone's going to go out and look it up, and because you have some notoriety in the space, to them it's good enough. And they maybe didn't even listen to your whole fucking stream. They just heard you say something about it that was, like a pump of metal for that thing, and you go do it, right? And then, for me, it was a perfect storm. I'm a gambler at heart, it's like it's a few $100, which was like nothing at that point. Bored out of my mind, and like Feeder said something. So I lost on that. But the thing is like, as people are going off and doing these other little shiny adventures, do they have what I have, which is a very, very solid HEX staking ladder in place that I have yet to cash any out to live on. I'm in a position to where I don't need to live on my crypto gains yet. So if you're in a position that you are trying to live off your staking ladder and scraping your interest, that's fine. That's what it was fucking built for. But also, if you have a sound staking ladder and your structure is such that you're going to take your interest off and live on that as the years go by, then you have a foundation. Then you are kind of more able to comfortably fuck off $300 into do dipshit coin, right? And it's like, and if you lose it, then you got no one to blame but yourself, and you didn't do your research and whatever. But that's what gives me kind of like the liberty to do those things, where these other people I'm seeing in some of these chats and stuff, they're all in. they're all in on the shiny thing, or they have a very, very small amount of HEX, and then it's not even staked. And it's like, man, it's like the foundation somehow, the excitement about the shiny thing just forgot about the base of the pyramid. It's like, build that and then chase all the shiny shit you want, but like get that foundation in place, get your staking ladder in place. And then the whole narrative too of like, oh, OGs are just wanting us to pump their bags. It's like, man, it's like, I bought it 43 fucking cents, man. I'm talking like 6 figures, like not low 6.
Wow.
At 43 fucking cents, man. It's like I dumped a lot of money. I mean, I would have been comfortable longer without having to worry about my crypto earnings had I not bought that at 43 cents. But I did, right? Someone could come in now with a fraction of what the fuck I did at 43 cents. And yes, the T-share rate has gone up in that year, but not that fucking much. They're not that far behind me. It's like, I mean, but they speak with such bravado and such confidence. I think it's leading a lot of noobs in dangerous directions. And I'm not trying to FUD anybody or like shit on any other streamers or anybody else in the community. It's like, I just feel like it's short-sighted and not well thought through. And I mean, the whole idea is about, I mean, even like with Maddie, you and I and Papa talking about the tax stuff, there's layers to this. And Crispy, you with the fire thing, there's layers to this. It's like making the money is one thing, retaining it's another, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where like tax prep and estate planning and those things, it's all pieces of the long-term picture. And it's just so frustrating to me that it's if you guys, any streamer out there that might happen to see or hear me say this here or elsewhere, because I've said it before, make sure your audience has that core foundation, because I guarantee you, if you're around in 3 years, like Maddie and Hexo and these guys that have done this day in and day out for 3 fucking years long, and you're still doing it, you still got the passion, you're still doing it, those people are going to remember the shiny objects that didn't do shit compared to what HEX did in that same 3-year period. Yep. But if you make sure all of your followers have that foundation first, play to your heart's fucking content. I don't give a shit. Then you, as a streamer, can look back and say, hey, I told everybody, until you've got a sound staking ladder in place, you're only going to fuck around with 5% of your bag, 5% of your fiat to go do these other things. As your ladder builds up, if you want to get a little more aggressive, what I mean? Like that kind of conversation. But it's all like, it makes me nuts.
Well, let me throw this at you. This is something, you tell me if this rings true to you, right? So I get exposed to a lot of people. I don't expose myself. I mean, we have conversations, but in Telegram and elsewhere, and everybody's always down on the what they call the OGs and the Maxis, right? But let me ask you this, right? I'll put it this way. I think new guys think that Maxis act the way they do because they got lucky with HEX. But I think what they don't understand is the reason we got lucky with HEX is because we acted the way we do. And I don't mean the super negative bullshit. What I mean is that core list of things that we know help build a community. And that's the, delayed gratification, staying away from trading, not chasing, shiny nickels into the sewer, and that kind of stuff. And I'm as guilty as everybody else for participating in that stuff. It's just hard to break the habits over time. Anyways, that's what I think. I think people got it wrong. They got it backwards. The reason we were successful is because we built that core community. Richard built that core community.
Toby, can you mute yourself when you're not talking, and then there will be background noise?
I got it. I just saw the note there. Thanks. I typically do that, but I'm like, I'm in my feelings at the moment. So it's like, I don't know, man. This is a fucking roller coaster, and it's like, we've been through. I mean, Maddie, you've been in crypto since how long? 2017.
I started to dip my toe in 16.
16, okay. That's what's good.
17 is when I say I got in. Like right when it passed when Bitcoin passed the price of gold at 2,500, that's when I cared.
And so you've been around long enough to like see these cycles and feel it, right? Like financial, like the stress of it. It's and I mean, I was doing. I mean, not nearly as volatile, but the way I was doing it was fucking pretty volatile, which anybody that knows my history with day trading and then actually even playing blackjack for a living for a portion of my life. It's like those are wild swings, man, and it's like it's an emotional toll. And the thing is that there have been times in trading crypto, in trading stocks, and in gambling where I had a plan and I worked that plan 99% of the time and was up and was doing well and had a nice stack. And the 1% of the time I went off book cost me all of it.
Wow.
Or damn near. I mean, pretty much got me to where I basically was like, in gambling terms, had to walk away from the table because I didn't have another, I didn't have enough chips left to play another hand, right? So, and it's like, it's kind of like death. It's like, I always hate when you meet someone that you lose close to you and people are like, oh, it gets easier. It's like, nah, it doesn't. Fuck you people. It's like, it does not get easier. It gets more manageable. But if you've ever suffered a loss of someone really dear to you and close to you, I have yet to meet anybody that would cop to it being easier. It just doesn't. So it's kind of like this too, because it's like there's still a lot of money on the table, and it's like, Maddie and the rest of us, I'm sure we were all doing screen grabs of our staker apps, and we're like paper fucking, multimillionaires. And it's exciting, heady shit, even though we knew we couldn't touch it for years out or whatever, or the majority of it for years out, or, some's a little closer in with shorter stakes. But still, it's like, there was a friend of mine I was talking to the other day. It's like, and he told me, he goes, if you want me to look at you and tell you that, just because it was on paper, I don't feel the fact that I lost $80 million, you're out of your fucking mind. You know what I mean? And it's like, even though it's still on paper, right? I mean, it's still not fucking, you can't Scrooge McDuck it and roll around in the shit. It's like, it's on the blockchain, waiting for you to mint it when the time comes, and what will the price be at that point? It is fucking emotional. So, I understand the strain that can take on people, but I think part of the reason I think Crispy was getting at it, I don't know what it is, but Papa Boner, see him there? Papa Boner calls me every fucking time I stream. I don't stream that often. I stream like maybe once a week, max, with somebody if I'm lucky enough to be invited. And without fail, he will fucking, and then a lot of times I'll be in the middle of a joke, like all this uncanny timing where he will interrupt me with a fucking phone call or a text or something and step on my punchline. He's not even in the fucking stream. I should have answered and told him to hop on with us. But but anyhow, so where was I going? I totally lost my train of thought. God damn it. Help, chat. Where was I, chat? Was anybody paying attention?
Well, you're talking about the difference between a gambling mindset and a more long-term mindset, between like getting something right 99% of the time versus sticking to a strategy 100%. And it's true that HEX is a technology that allows people to time lock in a way where you can be more consistent with yourself. You can show up for yourself more, and you leave less to chance, I think. And then in the sense that you're not going to leave everything to chance and be able to screw it up all at the same time completely. It's like, with most cryptos, you have to pick the right one, and then you're not going to see a 10,000x because you're going to sell when you get to 100x. But for HEX, it's designed in a way to allow you to hold on to it through the rips and the dips. And I mean, like, being down 70% on your hard-earned money or more, being down 90%, like that's pretty brutal, and it's emotional, and I'm glad that other people can relate to that. And it's been the bear markets that the first bear market I went through, I wouldn't have made it if it wasn't for finding YouTubers. Then, a lot of Bitcoin maxis, but if it wasn't for me finding YouTubers who still believed for me to keep the faith, and, Richard was one of those that helped me see the big picture and see that, when the price goes down, that's an accumulation opportunity and a chance to think more deeply about what you're buying and why. Is this, is this something that is going to be a good long-term hold, or is it something that you need to just kind of move on from? And when it comes to HEX, I think a lot of us are realizing that we still believe. We still believe.
We have the faith. Well, and here's that. Thank you, Maddie. That's exactly where I was going. And, if somebody told you in 2020 that HEX would get to 3.5, 4 cents and just kind of stay there forever. Now, that's not as sexy as a 10,000X, but that's a great fucking investment. I would have been fine with that. I always kind of saw HEX eventually kind of leveling off. I mean, we're going to get to the top of our S curve at some point too. I don't know where that'll be. Could be $150, could be $2,000, could be $2.25. I have no idea. I have no crystal ball. I have no idea where the top of our S curve is as far as price is on that stuff. But it's funny to me that 38% is not sexy enough, right? Because you're in crypto. So people are looking at, 10,000X will turn ahead, but it's like, 500, 600, 800, 1200X. That happens all the time in crypto. So people are chasing those. It's like whack-a-mole, So they're just jumping from one to the next. But it's like, if you're not in like a full-on just pump and dump, like that, it's been proven so many times with the FutureUs out there that'll get a bag and they promote it and then they dump the shit and it's like, and then you're the guy, right? That got dumped on. You got your, that's just time again. Or maybe the project just doesn't have a good market fit. It doesn't have a good team behind it. It's, there's any number of things, because it's like, just because it's crypto doesn't mean it's like magically going to work if it's not a rug. It's like, it's like a business, right? I mean, it's gotta function and compete like with what other products are out there. So I think that, kind of going toward what Crispy was getting at, as far as, people's disdain might be a little strong, but just kind of like maybe a myopic view of like, the OGs and their motivation to like still be out there, like pumping our Ponzi or whatever the fuck. It's like, it's just so aggravating, because it's like, no, man, it's like the reason that guys like Johnny Chaos are so passionate and, and everyone has their tiers. Like Maddie's a sweetheart. It's like, he'll get passionate, and I see Maddie get a little mean rarely, but it happens, but it's like, and Johnny Chaos is just like double barrels all the time, right? It's like it seems like he has very little empathy for somebody that is like not picking up what he's putting down. And then, there's all of us in between. And it's like, so the reason that the passion is there is because it is almost 3 years old. It is immutable code. It is triple audited. It is no admin keys. It has been proven to work. We have recovered from every dip that we've had along the way and are very likely to do so again and again. And we're probably going to see another 80% dip. Hold on to your hats, people. Maybe we get up to $2 and then bam, we're down to like 40 cents. Is the sky falling? Is that you're going to lose your shit? Or we're down to 20. Oh God, we're down to 20 cents. We hit $2 now, we're down to 20. That's how that works. Even Bitcoin still did that for years and years. But with crypto or with in general, I think just to try to put a bow on it, and to your point, Crispy, about why we're passionate about it is because it is fundamentally sound. Like, we know this is a base where if we want to go fuck around with dog coins or Conrad's thing or like whatever other little shiny object, or we want to go mess around in the Hedron system, or we want to pool some stuff with Maxi, or whatever anybody's whatever their druthers are, whatever it is that catches their eye to do, all of that stuff is infinitely less stressful if you have the foundation of a solid HEX staking ladder. And it's like, but I feel like the old guy, at the club, I'm using lines that worked 3 years ago, but like nobody wants to hear it now, because it's like, but hey, did you know that you could take this and you could transform it to that, and you could burn it for this, and then it could turn into this other thing, and then it's going to be that. And it's like, what? It's like, okay. And then they're off to the races with this thing that's fucking brand goddamn new. It's like, none of that has any credibility yet until it builds a community like HEX has proven to do. It has a charismatic leader like Richard, who is an obvious super fucking genius. There's just so many pieces that are in place. And plus, it's like, I got like, weird kind of inside information. I heard you talking about the movie, Maddie. I actually got some really good stuff that it's like, God damn, it's hard for me to keep secret. But I can't. I mean, I'm like literally contractually obligated to like not say things. But the movie's coming, and the movie's coming pretty soon. So I'm not saying by the end of the year, but it's coming. Things are looking really, really, really solid. And I've seen the whole movie. I haven't seen it with the orchestral score yet, but we should be hearing that soon. And Pat's off in Indonesia doing a thing. And I'm like, motherfucker. I'm like, he's in Bali. Bali's like one of my favorite places I've ever been to. And he's like, sorry for the short update. He's like, but I'm on set in Bali, blah, blah. Like, fucker. But it's like, but things are rolling, with highs to stakes. And I mean, there's already talk of, maybe a sequel or a series spinoff from it. So, I mean, all of that brings more eyeballs into the Richard Hart ecosystem. And for anybody out there that's hung up on the fucking, the clown parade that he has been for the last year. And now he's speaking to that more frequently. I noticed, like on Twitter and stuff. It's like before it's like you'd have to listen to like a 4-hour stream to hear him like give a nod to the fact, like, I'm doing this on purpose. I know it's ridiculous. I'm doing it to upset people so they continue to talk about me, right? I think I even clipped it. I'll share it in the private if you ever want to use it. But it's just like, and I'm like, Richard Hart reveals his marketing secrets or whatever. And it's like just this little thing. But my problem was I couldn't get my fucking onboards to sit down and listen to him for 3 hours to maybe stumble across the thing that explains the thing they don't like. Right.
Sure.
So now he's mentioning it more frequently. I have confidence, like, he hasn't lied to us yet. He said, if he finds something that works better, he will pivot, and if there's anything I've seen in the time that I've known of this man, he has been able to pivot very effectively and usually in a very good direction. This has just been a little more unpalatable to some, and not going to lie, it is a little difficult for me to onboard with some of the outrageous shit that he's done and said, through this period. And it is a little bit more heavy lifting as an onboarder to like have to explain to them, like, okay, he's not really a douchebag. It's like this is part of this marketing tactic, but you got to go back and you got to look at the early videos. That's the guy, right? And this is an iteration of him, because he is so desperately trying to make as many people as he can aware of this, and not to enrich himself further, but because it is literally better than everything else out there.
And it's not about him. And that's what makes HEX different, is HEX is immutable code. And we can see that the OA has never sold a coin. We can see that the money that was sacrificed is sitting there. So like wherever Richard is getting money from, which, seems to be his own success. And even if it wasn't, what would be wrong with that? Because, if you sacrifice for something, then that's what it really is. And it's not just a legal loophole. It's you literally sacrificed, and everybody agrees it would be cool to get an airdrop. And if you have to pick a group to give an airdrop of a revolutionary technology to, why wouldn't you pick the people who sacrificed straight up, who really believed, and who weren't, playing this ICO game? So, HEX is not an ICO, Pulse Chain's not an ICO, and the founder, even if he is using outrage tactics to like save millions of dollars in advertising, because spending $80,000 on an outfit is less expensive than going to a middleman like Facebook or Google and trying to push ads that nobody's going to care about and nobody's going to talk about and people are going to suffer through. Like instead you get people who are like against you become your promoters. I mean, what better, what more satisfying marketing strategy could you possibly have than to turn your haters into marketers for you? Dude,
tell me, if I had the balls, I should have done. I blew fucking $5,000 on Facebook ads, bro. $5,000 on Facebook ads, and it's like, and I caught 15 flavors of shit from people livid that I had the unmitigated gall to have Hexaco, which is the most G-rated, family-friendly, wonderful little goofy fucking video production that I put together of the parody of Kokomo, for those that don't know. And there's some cartoon parts of it. Many Hexicans participated and submitted clips of, to sing along to the song. They were fucking coming unglued. How dare I pop up in their feed trying to sell them some nonsense. I mean, just horrible, visceral hatred. Like I've never fucking seen. And I'm just like, bro, it's like, it's Facebook. Like, there's other ads. It's like, this is how that happens. It's like, I don't know why this is so upsetting. And I would get like pulled into these conversations, and it cost me $5 fucking grand. And go look at my video. I still don't think we've hit 10,000 views. You know what I mean? And it's been out for like a year. So, I mean, had I the balls and the forethought, maybe I would have been better, like, riding a fucking, one of those unicorns on a stick with like, pink assless chaps and just like, flicking off nuns or something. Maybe that would have got enough people talking about me to where they would have gone and saw the video and then saw the links to hex.com and then like done, followed the path that I was trying to get people to do with my efforts, right?
What do you think, Crispy?
Which part of your discussion? Specifically about marketing?
I just wanted to get your take so we go around the room and hear from everybody. So anything we've been ranting about?
Well, I think, Toby, one of the things you just mentioned, I think if we codified, and maybe we have this already in sci-fi, but if we codified what is the basic training for a hexagon, right? And we got that all over the place, right? And sometimes it's in pieces, but we got some really good sources out there, different people, different streamers. Maddie has his own, everybody else has their own, but it shouldn't be too hard for us to reach out and come up with exactly what that basic understanding is and just beat it like a drum. I mean, the people who are interested in this topic and would agree with you would probably get behind that. I can almost say 99%. And in fact, to get that list, you could just go do pasta in the Hex chat, because that really, Richard did a great job of codifying that. Really encapsulating and grabbing, hey, this is what's going on. These are the things to worry about, and these are things not to worry about. And for that matter, the list probably exists in some form right on hex.com. Right. But I agree with you is that people have forgotten. We haven't forgotten. They may not have ever known. Some of us have forgotten at times. And then you have the shiny, the shiny new thing syndrome, or the shiny nickel syndrome, where we're all chasing all this stuff. Right. And I think just repeating that over and over again.
Yeah. And and not to speak for Maddie, but it's like, again, it's like, I don't understand how you do it. You know what I mean? It's like, because you've put out so much content, and plus just the evolution. Like, I tell people to go back and watch Richard's early videos. You guys should go back and find Maddie's like earliest videos. It's like, it is fucking adorable. Okay. It just makes me want to hug him, because it's like, he was just like this quiet. You saw the hair, you saw the look, he's behind like the folding fucking table or some shit, weren't you, Maddie? And like, whatever, just basic background. But you were doing it, like you were putting yourself out there, and it's like, and it was clunky a little bit, but it was endearing. And I was just like, this guy's fucking doing it. It's like, nobody's going to like just start streaming and, be this polished, bit boy guy with like a crew of 60 people and like, boom mics and shit coming in from all over. It's like, if it's you and a camera, and you started, and just to watch his evolution has been really fascinating. And like RG, same deal. It's like, if you look at his early stuff, Hex has always been a goof, so I don't know, he just naturally gifted goofy fucker or something. I don't know, just fun to watch. But his level of education has improved greatly, like just the way that he describes things, and his knowledge is obviously way head and shoulders above most out there nowadays. And but it was an evolution, right? And yes. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's part and parcel to the society we're kind of in now too, where it's short attention span, everything, TikTok, whatever. It's like Maddie could probably speak to this better than I, just, you know, the different algorithms that are out there to see how long you stay on a particular video, or I don't know, there's all kinds of stuff that, I mean, they're basically gunning for you to like pull your attention. Like everybody's fighting for your attention. So inevitably it's going to get splintered and you're going to be, oh, squirrel. What? Like every time something comes at you, it's like you're just being conditioned to not be able to, I don't know. There's so many people that I get irritated with. Like I had a dude, and this was like a business related thing. And I just couldn't believe it. He literally replied, it was a paragraph and a half, Maddie. You know, I'm a verbose motherfucker. I can talk and I can I'm up there with like Funding Jim and Papa. It's like, if you want a simple concept over explained for, you know, and said, you know, 4 different ways for 9 minutes, we can do that. But, you know, this dude literally, I wrote him a paragraph and a half, bro. And he replied with TLDR. I had to Google it because I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but I thought I knew. And I'm like, motherfucker, too long, didn't read. Bitch, you can't read a paragraph and a half. You can't maintain enough focus on the specific business-related thing that I'm talking to you about to read the whole fucking paragraph and a half. You need me to shorten that for you, make it more, you know, like bite size. What the fuck, you know? But that's the world we live in. You know, it's like, and I mean, and I think that's probably, to go full circle back to the outreach marketing thing, what's going to get your attention? A fucking fat guy like busting out of a Prada suit, just dripping with, you know, golden diamonds. It's like, what's that? You know, it's like, and she had to sign off on it, but my fiance was allowed to watch the trailer. So, and we kind of wanted to, you know, she's 31 now, and, you know, wanted a female perspective that's not in crypto. So I talked to Pat about it. He's like, well, I'll get her to sign off and she can watch the trailer. She can't see anything else. Can't say anything. Read the same conditions you're under. I got it. So I'm like, okay, get her to sign off. And she watches it. And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, I'd watch that. That's a fucking train wreck waiting to happen. You know what I mean? But that's what you want. It's like, you want people to be like that, entranced by like this character, to like invest, you know, an hour and a half or however long for a movie, right? Or maybe it's a series or whatever. It's like, you gotta hook them somehow. Not everybody's going to be down to like talk about, you know, well, the formula that gets us to the TShares rate. You know, it's like, you know, I'd be down to listen to somebody rattle on about that, but not most people. You know,
I understand that.
You know, I mean, I've spent an hour on spreadsheets. I mean, you know, they're not.
Richard is going to the length, it appears. He's going to the length to find ugly backgrounds that clash with the clothing that he's wearing. So he's not only going to these luxury brand places and finding outfits that clash, that are odd enough to begin with, and then clash, you know, wearing a man purse and something with lots of stripes that doesn't go together. So he's got, I mean, when you look deeper and when you get it, when you have that aha that like he's doing this to enrage people, and when you really think about him making a goofy face and being against a background that looks really weird with the certain clothing that he's wearing, I mean, it's obvious that it is what it doesn't appear to be, and it's that makes it interesting as a funnel, as you say, and to break through the noise, to break through the matrix, to get people's attention, and you know, so far so good. It seems like during a bear market, the community continues to grow. You know, we still have new people showing up. So
Right, and isn't this all just a continuation of his approach from the beginning, right? That he conceived. I mean, maybe I imagined it, but I'm pretty sure I received the message from him and the messaging from him that the reason he was going to do certain things throughout the entire implementation of HEX and afterwards was specifically to whittle down the users of HEX to being the most stringent supporters of HEX.
That's a good point.
Like you can't. and I don't remember the words. You have to go pull the video up. But when he told us, "I'm going to market this like it's a scam," right? There's
Yeah.
two ways you take that. One way you take it is this is a scam, right? And you head for the hills. The other way is, this is pretty clever, right?
Yes.
Now I know which way I went. I went down the path that was really clever, and I'm still here, right?
Yes.
And I don't believe anything negative about it, but he really talked about a lot of things early on that were about sifting out the people with weak hands, the people who aren't going to be able to make it, which is kind of like the root of Toby, what I was getting at about our process. I mean, it took months for us to go through the process to learn how to be hexagons, like months, if not a year,
Yeah.
right? And then you set us loose on the world, and that's kind of where I get back to. Those are the kind of the things I think we would want to share with people, right?
Well, and I think also, because I'm a pragmatist, you know what I mean? It's like fence rider sounds shitty to me. I don't like that. But it's like I was a kid in high school. It's like I could go on the weekend and do bong rips and beer bongs with the stoner kids. And then, the next weekend I'd be hanging out with the preppy kids, and then during the week I'd be in the AP history class, nerding out with some of those people. And I just had a way of kind of finding a way to just be friendly with everybody. And it's it was rare that I really had anybody. And that's been a kind of an eye opener for me too. Cause in real life, believe it or not, folks, people love me. I don't know what it is. I don't get it. But in the Twitter sphere and the shit you get into in the crypto space, because people are so it's like identity politics. It's they identify so much with their particular belief on a thing. It's man, it's made me question myself a little bit. I don't know. It's been a little bit of a challenge. But being a pragmatist, it's the initial reaction I think is kind of what's that chart of first they fight us and then they fuck us, or no, that's something else. First they fight us and then they I don't know. Yeah. And then they and then we are them or something. I don't know, whatever. You know what I'm talking about? There's that little thing. I can't think of it. Help me, somebody, Crispy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yes I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, first they doubt us, and then they make fun of us, and then they fight us, and then we win.
Yeah. They basically follow the path of denial, right? Of grief. It's the stages.
Same kind of thing.
First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
This is why I love Matty Allen. So it's he accesses the recesses of my crazy squirrel brain that I can't get to as I'm rambling. So pragmatism, the go-to, because we are also identified as hexagons, literally, right? And we have our belief, and we think it's a good one, and we can speak about it at length of why it's better than other things. And we are devoted, right? And we are pot committed, as they say in gambling, right? It's we got our money is at stake. So there's, that's an element. We can't say it's not. But that's going to lead to conflict. So when you have someone coming straight at you and saying it's a scam or whatever, it's we've kind of gotten used to that, right? But the other part of it is where they come alongside you with a project of their own that maybe is similar, or maybe it's entirely different, whatever, but it's somehow infringing or infiltrating the community, right? And then we get a little possessive, or a hexagon core group, and then or anybody that claims to be a hexagon, and what do you mean you're going over and buying this other shitcoin or whatever? And then it creates conflict, right? So being a pragmatist, I'm trying to think that doesn't work, right? It's like politics. It's if you go at someone let's, if you're Trump or Biden or whatever, if you're left and they're right, and you come at them and right out of the gate, you're talking about what a piece of shit their candidate is, or how retarded their whole platform is, pretty good chance that person is not going to listen to anything you got to say. They're going to get really defensive. And if anything, they're going to shut you down or come back at you with the same kind of energy, right? And then maybe they start it. Maybe they come at you with that energy. And then how do you as a hexagon respond, right? What is for the greater good? The way that and this is a hierarchy as well. There's people in all spectrums. There's the Johnny Chahoses, and there's the Maddies, and there's the Hexas, and everyone deals with it differently. The way I choose to look at it is this. If you can keep that open dialogue, going and doing a bong rip with the stoner kids, and then going and, you know, playing baseball with like the preppy kids, then, you know, you can have influence in those groups, not to manipulate, but to persuade and say, hey, you know, here I am, an OG, and I'm talking to you about your thing. I'm not opposed to listening to what you have to say about it. I would not advocate buying it. But let's say, for example, I got something for free. And now there's some tokenomics and some other things going on in that ecosystem with that thing that I got for free. You know, that's interesting to talk about. Now, I'm not going to go as far as advocating that person go buy that thing, but it gives me an opportunity, if I'm in that community, that I can talk to them about the reason that I can talk about playing around with, hey, I'm going to go ahead and transform that to that and then use that to mine that. And we all know what I'm talking about. Then I can put out there, hey, do you have a HEX staking ladder? And not like in a creepy, like evangelical way, you know what I mean? But just like legit, like in their Telegram chat. I'm in there. I'm active. They fucking made me an admin. I got all freaked out from it. I'm like, oh shit, is Richard going to like boot me as an admin from the Telegram chats? And then it's like, that's not a problem, right? As long as you like maintain your integrity in the job that you're given. And I didn't ask to be an admin in that chat, but they made me one because I'm a respected, known member of like the crypto community. And they are kind of like our little step cousin, right? The Pulse Doge people. So that way I have an opportunity then to talk in that group and say, hey, me, and I'll go ahead and not name them, but, you know, other HEX OGs that are, you know, talking about these projects that can see some exciting elements to them. The reason they have that is they have a staking ladder in HEX that's solid as all fucking get out first. They got the foundation. So don't follow the little thing that they're talking about that sounds kind of shiny and new. Their big balls that they've got to go do this thing that sounds so nutty is because they have staked ladders. Is that my music? Where's that music come from? Are you playing me out?
It's our outro music to say that it's been great to have you guys on.
I like the music. I do. Is it like lo-fi?
It is. Like it's built into StreamYard. It's nice. So,
cool. Well, thanks, Maddie. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being on, guys. You guys rock. I always love having you two as guests. It's a huge honor and a joy. So everybody needs to check out these guys' socials and go to hexfire.io for your statistics. Where can people find you guys at?
Crispy, where are you at?
You can catch me on, I'll throw it out in the chat, but just on Twitter, of course, ChrispyMan too. The Crispy_man too. And I'll put that out there, but just ChrispyMan on in Telegram.
Right on. Yeah, I'm on Telegram at Tobiwan Hexobi. And I've got all my links there, so you can go see the Hexco music video and like any little clips I made of some Richard content and some other, I can't even remember what I did, but I clipped some other stuff up. Looking to broaden that out a little further. My Telegram's on there too. If you have questions for me, you can DM me there or on Telegram. I always try to answer any questions that I get from anyone because it's a community after all, and we gotta lift each other up. But I do want to say one last thing, if I may. Don't take a face or a voice on the internet that might seem friendly or familiar as all of your fucking research. I don't care if it's Maddie. I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's Crispy. You need to flesh that out with research of your own. You need to read your white papers. You need to go and dig in like whatever, somebody said they got an audit. Oh, cool, they're audited. Well, what company? Maybe you need to find out about that company, see what kind of audit it was. You know what I mean? And Maddie, I'd love to talk to you maybe in the green room for a minute if you're not too wiped out. I think it'd be great if somebody, and I'll volunteer to be part of it if you can stand in long enough, to come up with a tutorial, if you haven't already got it, of how to do your own research. Like really how to do it.
Cool. Sounds like a plan. Well, we will we'll report back to people in the future. Thanks everybody for being here. Hit the like and subscribe button. I'm streaming every Tuesday and Thursday night. I think I'm going to do a special stream with Dollar Cost Crypto this weekend as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
Make sure to tune in for that. And until next time, my friend, until next time, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
Stake it.